Hello and welcome to the Film Pulse Podcast. This is episode number 326. My name's Adam Patterson. With me today, we got Kevin Rakestraw. Hey, Kevin.
Hey.
This week on the show, we'll be taking a look at Brian de Palma's Domino, along with someone watching on the watch list, going over this week's new releases in theaters, VOD, and Blu-ray. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, you can help support Film Pulse on Patreon at patreon.com/filmpulse for just $1 a month. Also, please consider reviewing us on iTunes, as that's extremely helpful as well. Just one bit of housekeeping. The new episode of Say by the 90s has dropped. It is available now. We discuss comedies released in May of 1991. Okay. So that includes What About Bob, Mannequin on the Move, Drop Dead Fred,
yes, and
Soap Dish. I've never seen Soap Dish before.
I remember this.
Yeah.
How was Soap Dish?
Not great.
Ah.
In fact, all these movies were not great, except for What About Bob, of course.
Still the best movie.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Baby steps.
It holds up, man. What About Bob holds up like crazy.
I still love that movie.
Absolutely. I said this on the show. I think it's one of Bill Murray's best performances.
I would agree.
We also talk about two comedy shows, TV shows, including Parker Lewis Can't Lose and Dinosaurs.
Yes.
Parker Lewis holds up. Dinosaurs does not. I mean, I don't even know.
Lies.
Dude, that show is so bad.
This show's the best.
It's so horrendous.
Blasphemy.
All right, let's dive into our review this week, shall we? We're talking about Domino. This is directed by Brian de Palma. I have a synopsis here. A Copenhagen police officer seeks justice for his partner's murder by a mysterious man. Can I just say that this is a new movie. This is a movie that came out this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
This does not feel like a new movie. This feels like it's a straight-to-video movie from 1998.
Yeah.
This movie feels so old. It is... it's like, remember when DVD really started blowing up and you just saw this huge like groundswell of these like generic action movies that were coming straight to DVD, and they all had sort of the same cover. They all looked the same. They all starred like a generic action person. And when you would read the back, the plot would just be like, oh yeah, okay, that's just so forgettable and generic. Like that's this movie.
Correct.
100%. I mean, it's like, I get it. Brian De Palma's like 78 years old or something by this point. And
well, I think I don't know the specifics, but I think this was a movie that was hung up for a long time.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Which it shows.
Yeah, I think it did get hung up for a while. But
because you're 100% right. It feels like it came out like 10 years ago, if not more.
Yeah, I don't know all the details about what happened with this, but I mean, even if it got hung up for a few years, it still feels just so old. And then like also like with the plot feels so generic and like can we put a moratorium on like ISIS movies, like dealing with terrorists and stuff? Like that's just let's not shine a light on them anymore.
And it feels like it was that this came about like right after ISIS kind of came into the headlines. This feels like a movie that was born straight out of that. Like we don't really know who ISIS is and what they're up to, but they're attacking everyone
for no discernible reason. Like the terrorists in this movie, like they gave them the bare bones, motivations here.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's the Paris. Essentially, it's just because God is great.
Yeah,
that's really their reasoning. It seems like.
And I like how they made a big point of like they're using technology.
They're using drones.
they're using technology. They have drones and they're using
cars.
iPhones. Oh my gosh.
They're live
There's
streaming.
like production, like they have different camera angles and they're beheading videos and stuff. This movie is so forgettable on so many levels.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like the weirdest thing for me is you have kind of two storylines going on here, where you have the mysterious man, him kind of being utilized by the CIA to track down these terrorists, and then I guess what's considered the main through line narrative, which is the Danish police trying to track him as well because he killed a Danish police officer. And they just the whole Danish part of it just did not work for me at all, because again, it's just the most generic, his partner was killed, he's looking for vengeance, and then of course there's this other woman who turns out to be his lover, so she wants vengeance too, and it's just
Yeah, so you have Nicolaj Coster-Waldau in there as the main character, Christian, who I'm sure you recognize him from Game of Thrones. And then you also have Carice Van Houten, also from Game of Thrones, as the female lead. And she is so underwritten, and like the script, the way that it treats that character feels very sexist to me in this movie. The way that she is treated by everyone around her. And also, it's revealed, this is not a big spoiler or anything, that she's pregnant. And I love how that is revealed when he's scrolling through photos on her phone and sees the ultrasound, and it's like a fully formed baby that's like ready to come out of her, and yet she is not showing at all. And it's so ridiculous. This whole the whole pregnancy thing just feels so shoehorned in.
Well, yeah, I mean, all of it is just it's very childish to just have her, like, every time he comes up, the Lars character, who's the partner that is dying, anytime he comes, she just becomes a sobbing mess, and she just can't take it anymore, and she has to storm off. She's just overwhelmed always.
And I don't even know why her character exists in this movie. To me, it seems like the only reason she exists is because they were like, oh, well, we're not filling a woman quota here. We gotta add a woman in here and just have her do like basic womanly things. It's just seems so ridiculous to include her. And it seems like she's only there to service the plot at the very end.
Yeah.
To justify to formulate that whole plot line of her being with the guy, Lars. It seems like it's only to service what she does at the very end of the movie.
Which the writing in this is just spectacular in a lot of ways. Like when they find out, because I'm going to spoil this, by the way, because this movie's not good, so it doesn't matter. So if you would plan on watching Domino from Brian De Palma, 2019, you can just stop listening now. But when they find out that Lars in fact died, and they have to like pull over because she's going to be sick, and of course he comes over and sits with her, and she's very upset, and she's saying that they loved each other, and that's when he finds out, Christian's character finds out that they were together, which, man, you should have put that shit together a lot earlier. Like, you are a terrible detective.
Well, we know that we just to pause you for a second, we know he's a terrible detective because he bungled everything up until that point. Like, these two cops are so inept. Like, he forgets his gun. He leaves his gun at home. Are you serious? And then the decisions that they make, they arrest the guy, Ezra. I think that's his name, right?
Yeah.
They arrest him and they don't frisk him. They don't check him for weapons or anything.
Nothing.
They just leave him there and like
They don't
They
even
turn
watch
around.
him.
They don't even watch him.
Well, you got to get that split diopter shot in there.
Yeah. Yeah, you had a few. You did have a few of those.
And that was, I gotta say, that was my favorite thing about this movie is when he's getting ready to leave and that woman keeps trying to get him to stay and the camera is only fixated on the gun and just slowly zooms in on the gun.
Yeah.
And then North said, I actually loved that. I was like, this is going to be awesome. But unfortunately, the music kept making things terrible. And then the action just, oh boy. But before, I'm getting ahead of myself now, but back to the original, when they're sitting there on that little picnic table or whatever, and she's talking about how they loved each other, and he just starts going, shut up, shut up, shut up. And then at the end, when Guy Pearce is like, oh, do you feel better getting vengeance? And like a little bit later, she's like, yeah, I do feel better. She's like, oh my God. It's kind of funny. But like the action, number one, the guy from Game of Thrones, what's his name again? Nikolaj
Coster-Waldau.
He is not athletic in any way, shape, or form. So watching him do anything is, it's awful.
The chase, the rooftop chase at the beginning was clunky, to say the least.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, man. They just, like, and there's that one scene where him and Alex, his new partner, they just, like, I guess they just had to put in, like, a fight scene where they beat up those like, teenagers on the street. Like, that was the shittiest fight scene I think I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Had to be. Like, top 10 worst fight scenes ever.
Yeah.
And then they just hop right back in their car and sleep there. Like, they don't even leave. They just kick the shit out of those kids, get back in their car and go to sleep. Like, this fucking movie.
Yeah. It's rough. I didn't expect it to be it was pretty much what I expected.
I gotta say, though, no, because when I went into it, I knew a little bit about, like, this being, like, hung up and everything and whatever happened. And it wasn't released. So I was kind of expecting a bigger mess narrative-wise, which I don't think it is. Like, it's not that much of a mess. Like, it's pretty straightforward. Like, you can follow it. It kind of makes sense, the transitions from scene to scene. It's just not good.
Yeah, I mean, it's competently directed. I just don't think there's anything of consequence to this movie. It feels like a relic. It's just not. I mean, even if it came out 10 years ago, I don't think people would be talking about it because it doesn't have a lot to say that hasn't already been explored in better ways. You have, I think, a decent cast of people in this, but they just don't really do much. Like Guy Pearce plays this kind of I guess he's like sort of portrayed as being a bad guy, but he's not really.
I think and that was the only interesting thing to me was how they kind of center the Danish cops' journey of vengeance. And it's to them, it's all about them, and they're doing like really important things. But in like the grand scheme of things, like they ain't shit. Like they didn't really do anything. They just killed a dude who, for me, was the only interesting character in the movie, and also the actor that plays him, Eric Ibone. He was like the only one that I felt was taking this seriously. Like he was, he was bringing it as much as he could. And anytime he was on the screen, I was actually engaged, and everyone else just felt like they were dicking around, and I just kind of felt bad for him. And then to make matters worse, is I get on IMDb, right, and he's like 9th listed for some reason, and then they don't even have his character name; it just says actor.
What? Oh
Just
no.
this fucking actor, man.
Oh man, I see that.
They have the young model that got shot in the face that was there for like 1 second above him, and his is just actor.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah, this is a little bit of a rough one. Not a whole lot going on. I mean, there's a few, like you mentioned, the split diopter shot. There's a few De Palma-esque uh, bits in there, but far from what I would call a classic De Palma movie.
Yeah, it's very very I guess just generic. I mean, in terms of like its understanding of, or even like its depiction of ISIS and the CIA and such. Like it, this is what I would expect if my mom wrote this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I was just like, oh, they're bad. They blow stuff up.
Yeah, there's not a lot of depth
No,
happening here.
there's like no complexity to this whatsoever.
The
And
thing
I
is,
mean,
though, when you look at the premise, you have this guy who his father was killed by these ISIS people, so he's on a path of vengeance, and in like during his path, there is some collateral damage, and he ends up killing a police officer. So, like, the premise is actually pretty good. It's
yeah,
just that they don't really go anywhere with it.
no, and it is really interesting because really I mean, yes, he does kill the cop, but in a sense, the cop kills himself through his own ineptitude.
Yeah.
And then you throw in the whole fold of the CIA taking him and utilizing him for their search because he can do whatever he wants, and they can just drop him at any moment, so they can use him without getting their hands dirty. But then they have to deal with the Danish police getting their nose all up in their business. So like, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here, but man,
It doesn't
for me, it's
capitalize
not.
on any of
No,
the more interesting elements. Like, if they kept the focus on Ezra and made it his story instead of Christians,
yeah,
because seriously, like, this guy is so bland. Like, who care? He's such a generic
and he's
detective character.
yeah, and like I said, he's not athletic in any way, shape, or form. So any of the action stuff that he does is just ungodly to watch. I mean, and you get again the actor playing Ezra actually has like a screen presence to him, and he is actually kind of badass, especially when he has everything with the when he goes to Mustafa's cafe and starts kicking the shit out of that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's actually a compelling character.
Also, the title Domino. Come on,
and the, and
and the
the,
and the
the
poster.
poster. Oh boy.
Yeah, everything you need to know about this movie you can see from that poster. The title is just so. I mean, there's already a movie called Domino, for God's sake.
Um, yeah, there's pretty sure more than one named Domino.
Probably.
I just, if I took a quick look at this, like if I just passed it on the street, this poster, I would just be like, oh, a new Jason Statham movie.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like to me.
Something tells me this wasn't originally called Domino. It had to be called something else
Yeah,
originally.
I'm sure.
Because that's just, I don't know. It just doesn't work. All right, let's give this thing a score. Kevin, what are you going to give Domino?
They go 4.
I'm going with a 3 on this one.
Whoa. Whew. Yeah,
Yeah.
because now, like, I'm like, 4? What the fuck are you thinking? That's terrible.
Yeah,
But I
just
said it. Can't have you influence me.
there you have it. Domino. It's going to be on VOD if you want to see it.
I want to just clear the air here, a little behind the scenes action. I wanted my pick to be, what was it, The Perfection?
Yeah.
That was the movie that I wanted to cover. I was like, that's the one. We're going to cover that one. But it gave me pause because I'm like, I don't want this podcast to just become like, hey, this week we're going to review another Netflix movie. Like, I didn't want to get stuck in that rut. So I went with Domino, and now I'm just kind of like, fuck it. I wish we'd just watch The Perfection instead.
Well, I did watch The Perfection, so
Tell me about
we can use that as a segue.
Here we go.
The Perfection is not what I expected.
Okay.
Not what I expected at all. This is directed by Richard Shepard. Stars Allison Williams as this. She's like a cello. She's a cellist, and she leaves. She leaves this like prestigious conservatory to take care of her ailing mother who is dying, and she comes back years later and ends up meeting the new star pupil, and she does something. This is a hard movie to talk about because I feel like this is the type of movie you want to go into completely cold because it'll be all the more shocking. There's like twists upon twists upon twists in this movie. So many twists. You don't know where it's going to go. And I ended up liking it quite a bit. We do have a review for this up on the site. Blake reviewed it for us, and I would give it a light recommend. More than anything, just because it's on Netflix, and also just because it goes to some really shocking places that I did not expect. I mean, at times this movie is kind of hard to watch. It gets very grim at times, and yeah, I would say that Allison Williams does a pretty decent job, and overall, give it a look. If you have a problem with sort of body horror elements, maybe avoid.
Okay. Should we have covered this instead of Domino?
Yeah. Probably.
I just don't want to become like a Netflix thing.
No, of course. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because Netflix is kind of dominating now. Because back in the past, when they first started coming out, it was like a movie here and there, like one a month maybe.
Well, at least we didn't do the cover the McG one.
Oh God, no. Yeah,
I didn't watch that. That came out also.
I watched one other movie. I watched I Am Legend from 2007.
Wow.
Yeah, some dystopian sci-fi stuff going on there. This movie, I was surprised. I thoroughly enjoyed it up to a certain point, which is the end. The end is fucking atrocious. Just fucking terrible. They just took everything that was great and just threw it in the trash. And they're like, fuck it, we're going to do a happy ending. And it's just downright stupid.
I think there is an alternate ending.
Yeah, which is bullshit. That's a cop-out. You can't do that. Can't be doing alternate endings. There's one ending, fucker.
I guess they weren't sure which way they wanted to go.
Well, of course they went, and I understood that going in. Usually with studio movies, you can kind of expect what the ending is going to be because no one really has the backbone to go too dark with it. You kind of have this feeling that there's going to be some sort of uplifting, something that gives you a sense of hope, right? Which is fine. That's fine if you do it right. But here they just, like, the movie just stops at a certain point. Some new characters are introduced and everything is just, happily ever after bullshit from then on out. And it's also just kind of rushed at the end just to kind of like wrap it up in a little bow. And man, it was just like I knew they were going to go that route, but at the same time, it's just the execution of it just makes it even worse. And because they introduce something where, he's out and about, he sets this little trap to try and get someone to get, I think they're called like dark seekers, to take back to his lab so he can test on them. And the next time he's out, the dark seekers essentially reenact to a T his little trap. and he gets trapped. And he's talking about like, oh, they've completely devolved. There's absolutely no sign of human activity with them whatsoever. And it's like, okay, this is kind of interesting because clearly they can learn and adapt. So there's something going on here. But then they just never really do anything with it. It's just that one thing, and then that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the other thing that I thought was kind of interesting is like the special effects were just awful. They're so bad.
Well, this was made a long time ago, over a decade.
But it's. I don't remember them being that bad in 2007, but maybe I'm wrong. Because it's like they have a CGI deer moving, and like everything around the deer is just like completely distorted. Anytime the deer moves, like everything around it, it's awful looking.
I remember liking that movie.
It's really good up until a certain point, and then they throw it all away.
That's I Am Legend. I saw John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum. I think I said this after the first John Wick, when the second one was ready to come out, and I was like, how can they top it? Like, how can they possibly catch lightning in a bottle again? And they did it with John Wick Chapter 2. And I was saying the same thing about this one. I'm like, where can they go from here? Like, they had everything, like everything you can think of that would be cool in an action movie, they included in the first two movies. So I'm like, where can they go? Well, the first 10 minutes of John Wick Chapter 3. Now this takes place directly after the events of the second one, like the same night where the second one ends. So picks right up. And the first 10 minutes has 3 action sequences, and they are so incredible and so unique. I'm not going to say what happens because I feel like you just need to go into this and experience it. But that the way that it kicks off, I was just like, holy shit. This is a game changer when it comes to action. This is setting a new bar because it was so incredible, so unique. And there's not just the first 3 sequences. I mean, it starts off on a really high note, but there's a couple other sequences that happen later on in the movie where there was one action sequence that had Halle Berry in it. So it was John Wick, Keanu Reeves, and Halle Berry fighting, and that whole sequence, my mouth was hanging open in the theater, and I was just like, holy shit. I've never seen anything like this before. Absolutely incredible. And the thing is, the only problem is that for me, that action scene was ended on such a high note that the sequences that happened after that felt like they weren't on the same level. You know what I mean? Like the final fight felt a little bit too long, and I was like, this is dragging on a little bit. But the final fight is involving several cast members from the raid. Yes. So you know that it's technically impressive. And that's the thing, like, it seems like with the John Wick movies, they pull in bits and pieces from other action movies and adapt them to their own. Like, this movie has a lot of, the first John Wick had a lot of the gun kata. Like, it was mostly gun kata. And with this one, there's a lot more hand-to-hand combat. There's a ton of knife play. And it seems like they lifted that directly from the Raid movies. All of the moves, just the martial arts style feels like it's pulled or influenced directly from the Raid movies. And it's not a ripoff or anything like that. It still has that John Wick feel. The other thing that I liked a lot about this is the continual world building that they do. That was one of the most interesting aspects of the first John Wick, was this strange underground world that it took place in. And in the second one, I knew that they were going to continue to build that world, but I was concerned that they were going to give too much away. Like they were going to try to develop it too much, and it was going to turn into this just messy, universe that got convoluted. And I had the same concerns with this one. I'm like, well, if they continue to build on it, there's not going to be any mystery. There's not going to be any kind of allure to this world. And they do it in such a way where they just give you little morsels, little morsels of how this all works and the history behind it, and how the high table functions and stuff like that, and how the various hotels function. And they gave you just enough in this to expand it a little bit without going overboard and like dumping exposition onto you. Now that was the other thing. The whole series does this, where there are no exposition dumps. Like there's no scene where, two people are explaining things to each other that they should already know and don't need to be having a conversation about. It's just for the benefit of the audience. They don't do that in these movies. They have natural conversations, and it's up to you as the audience member to try to piece things together. So I can highly recommend John Wick Chapter 3. It is bar none one of the best action movies I've ever seen. And it's right up there for me, like with the Raid movies. It's highly, highly recommended.
Better than Domino.
Kevin, you have to see this movie. Oh my God.
Oh man, I actually had, because I still haven't seen 2, so I got to get caught up on that and then see 3, right? And of course, I think it was like last weekend, like Sunday or something. My wife is like, "Hey, I think I want to watch the John Wick movies." God damn it! Couldn't we done that like a month ago? And then we would have been prepared for when 3 came out. But I can't be too angry. Gonna end up getting to see some John Wick. Anyways.
I can't wait till you see it so we can talk about the scene with Halle Berry, because oh my God, incredible.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited.
I also saw Booksmart. This is the directorial debut of Olivia Wilde, and believe the hype on this one too. This is a great comedy. Very funny. Not quite as funny as I expected from the trailer. I mean, the trailer for this movie is quite good and makes it out to be, a laugh riot nonstop. Yeah. It's not quite that, but it is still very funny throughout. They don't drop the humor. That's something that we talk about a lot on the show, where, a lot of times comedies will end up trying to do something that's like heartfelt, and they'll slowly taper the humor off so that they can bring in, deeper messages and stuff.
Gotta get that life lesson in there.
Yeah, and they do that in this, but they don't do it in lieu of comedy. They still keep the comedy going, but there are a number of heartfelt moments in it. I didn't know that Beanie Feldstein was Jonah Hill's sister.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, I just learned that like yesterday.
When I originally saw it, I just assumed that, because I thought that would have came out with, what was she in, Lady Bird, right?
Yeah, she was in Lady Bird, but she's also in What We Do in the Shadows, the TV series.
Yeah, and it never really came out then. So when I saw that this time around, I figured, oh, someone's just kind of pointing out that she's like the female version of Jonah Hill, which I totally see. I get it. That's a good joke. She's Jonah Hill's sister. But no, she is Jonah Hill's sister.
Yeah, she's actually Jonah Hill's sister.
Yeah.
I didn't know that either until like yesterday.
Yeah.
She's hilarious. Caitlin Dever, who's the other female lead, she's hilarious in it as well. Really, really solid comedy. We have so few good comedies that come out every year. Like there's maybe a handful of good comedies that come out every year.
Yeah.
like three. There's like three good comedies that come out every year these days, and this is absolutely one of them. I would put it like looking at like the kind of coming of age high school comedies. I would say that I still prefer Eighth Grade over this. I think that Eighth Grade was funnier, but this is right up there with it. Comparing it to Superbad, I mean, everybody says that, oh, this is like the female version of Superbad. It is sort of, in that, you know, it's two best friends and it's a high school comedy, but the style of humor is much different in this. I think it's a little bit of a smarter, more dialogue based, less gross out stuff, although there are a couple kind of gross out type things in here. Certainly not on the same level as Superbad. I think Superbad is funnier, but I think that this is a better movie.
Gotcha.
So yeah, Booksmart, that's playing now. Definitely check it out, especially because this is a smaller movie. It got a wide release, but you know, it's going up against Aladdin and Brightburn. Like, just I would put your money into this one. Finally, I'll mention Avengement. This is a movie that came out over the weekend. This is
this title.
This is directed by Jesse V. Johnson. Don't let the title fool you. It's a terrible title. It's a really shitty title, but the movie's really good. It stars Scott Adkins. If you're not familiar with Scott Adkins, he's like a bona fide action star. He's in a ton of movies, not so well known stateside, but he's a British actor. Does just a ton of things, and you've probably seen him in other movies. Like, he was in The Expendables 2, and he was in some, maybe the Marvel movies or something. He was in a ton of stuff. Anyway, he plays this former boxer who ends up going to prison because he's trying to raise money to start up a business. He goes to his brother, who's this like kind of gangster, for money, and his brother has him do this one job where he has to mug this woman and steal a bag from her. And he does it, but she ends up chasing him, and she gets hit by a car and dies.
Ooh.
So he ends up going to prison, and while in prison, he starts getting attacked by inmates like over and over and over again. And he eventually discovers that there's a hit out on him. There's a 20,000-pound bounty on him. And he finds out that it was his brother that put out the bounty on him. And he ends up breaking out of prison and going after his brother. And there's a lot of really great action in it. Certainly not John Wick 3 level. I think the fact that I just saw John Wick 3 right before this, unfortunately brings it down a little bit, but
yeah, that's not fair to Avengement.
No, it's not. That. And it's a different style of action. Like, this movie is just gritty, down and dirty, just street brawl style.
Yeah.
Like this, I think Ryan would probably love this movie because it feels like a very like football hooligan-esque type movie.
It's just fist punching faces.
Yeah. He gets curb stomped in it, which is a really difficult scene to watch. This movie's very bloody, very, very gritty, graphic violence in this. He gets napalmed in the face.
Oh.
And he gets curb stomped. So
that doesn't seem like something that you can generally come back from.
Yeah, the curb stomping knocks out all his teeth. So if you see like the trailer, he has like all kind of like chrome teeth.
So he did find at some point after getting all of his teeth knocked out to get replacements.
Oh, they do it in prison. So like he gets curb stomped in prison, and the surgeon didn't like his attitude, so he gave him the shiny teeth instead of regular teeth. It's great. It's a really solid watch. Again, bad title, but really solid action movie. All right, let's take a look at what we have in theaters this week. Got a couple biggies. Dark Phoenix. This is the X-Men movie.
All right.
Low expectations for this one. I don't know. I'm gonna go see it, but I'm not sure. I don't have a. Not holding my breath on it. I was not a big fan of the last one.
What was the last one?
Apocalypse. Thoroughly forgettable.
I kind of lost track of the X-Men franchise there.
Yeah. We have Secret Life of Pets 2 coming out. I have no desire to see this. I remember the original one. I thought that the trailer made it look good, but then I heard that it was not. So this one does not look.
This one, I know, like all I've seen is I think maybe the trailer once or twice. And it's really confusing to me because obviously I never saw the first one outside of the trailer. But it seems like a lot has happened, which doesn't make sense to me. Like their animals are like superheroes or some shit.
I have no idea.
And I thought it was just like what they do when they're hanging out at home. But now like they're getting into adventures. They have costumes.
I think that the first one involved adventures too. And I think that that's why I think some people were a little bummed out with how it actually, like what it actually was, because the trailers only show them like after their owners leave and like the stuff they get into, which I think is a good idea. You know, that's kind of a fun idea, but I think it's more involved in that. Like they get out and they do stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Late Night also comes out. This is the Mindy Kaling comedy.
Okay. All right.
I'm slightly interested in this one.
I'll watch it.
It's written by Mindy Kaling, directed by Nisha Ganatra.
Okay.
We also have Leto. We have Katie Says Goodbye. We got This One's for the Ladies. That's the documentary. NC-17, that one.
It's for the ladies.
It is for the ladies. Explicit sexual images.
For the ladies.
For the ladies. Pavarotti comes out. That's the doc from Ron Howard.
Yeah, also NC-17.
Some hardcore Pavarotti action, full penetration.
He put his home movies in there. For some reason. It was a bizarre choice.
On VOD this week, we have The Cleaning Lady. This is on June 4th. Rondo, which is the sort of exploitation throwback that I really hated this movie. A lot of other people seem to dig it, but I think it's really bad. Like, just atrocious. The Bastard's Fig Tree. The Odds. The Possession Diaries. Mollywood. Wonders of the Sea. That's a documentary narrated by Arnold Schwarzenegger, I think.
Oh, that's a bad choice.
Yeah.
Who the fuck wants to hear that guy's voice narrating something?
I think I don't see that listed in the synopsis, but I swear I read that somewhere. I hope I'm not just making that up. Oh yeah, here it is. Narrated. Yeah.
Why would you do that?
It's narrated and produced by Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't know. I'm not sure. Extracurricular activities. We have a review for that up on the site right now. That's in limited release right now. I think it's just playing in LA. And then on the 7th, we have Katie Says Goodbye. The Child Remains. Framing John DeLorean, which is is it? I don't know if it's a document. Oh, here it is. It's introducing the first documentary reenactment true story of the man behind the car. Alec Baldwin plays John DeLorean.
The first documentary reenactment. You don't have to reenact it. You can just, I think we could have stopped at a doc.
Yeah, I'm not sure about this.
Jesus Christ.
On Netflix, we have a movie called I Am Mother. Also on Netflix, we have The Black Godfather. And it looks like that's about it for VOD this week. A lot of stuff.
Yeah.
On Blu-ray, this is for Tuesday, June 4th. We have The Man Who Laughs from 1928. This is a 4K remaster being put out by Flicker Alley. They put out a lot of classics, a lot of really old stuff.
Deep cuts.
Yeah, we got the Andromeda Strain from 1971 coming out on Arrow. Looks like the Batman movies are getting some 4K releases. This includes the 89 Batman, 92's Batman Returns, 95's Batman Forever, 97's Batman and Robin. Probably recommend the first two.
Yeah.
Not sure.
I'm so sick and tired of Batman.
Blasphemy.
I'm just tired of him. I'm tired of the man of Bat.
I will never tire of Batman, sir.
Can't
1988's Trapped Alive is coming out on Arrow.
Okay.
The Last Warning from 1928. That's also a Flicker Alley release. And that's also a remaster.
Flicker Alley, all about 1928.
Lost in Space Season 1 is coming out. The reason that I mention this is because that's a Netflix show. And it's rare that they put their stuff out.
And it's
on
rare
home media.
They pick that one.
You know, I think I talked about this before on the show, like back when this came out, the first season. I was so impressed with Lost in Space Season 1. I had no expectations about that, and I ended up loving it.
Really?
Yeah. I was never a fan of the show. I didn't like the Matt LeBlanc movie.
Yeah.
So, but the visuals in that show are so good. I highly recommend giving it a look. I was so impressed. Venture Bros Season 7 is coming out. That show's still on, by the way. They're still plugging away at it.
Really?
Yeah, it takes them like 3 years to make a season, but they still do it.
I don't know how self-centered I am, but I just assumed that when I stopped watching it, they stopped making it. Apparently, that's not the case.
No, because Season 7 came out last year. It's still good. They're still pumping out quality. I think that's why it takes them so long. Because, that's a very deep, complex show with a lot of characters, and there's just so much going on in that show. And the animation quality is quite good, too. Let's see. The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, that's the Terry Gilliam one. The Kid, I think that's the one. It's the Western with, I think, was it Vincent D'Onofrio directed that one?
I have no idea.
Yeah, it's the one with Ethan Hawke, directed by
go.
Vincent D'Onofrio.
Correct.
The Haunting of Sharon Tate, that's the first of many Manson movies that are coming out this year.
Yep.
Knife Plus Heart, rather. I'd recommend that. Light recommend.
I as well.
A Medea Family Funeral. That's about all I got. What about Criterion's?
Well, we got a re-release. The old Blu-ray, getting the trilogy from Ingmar Bergman, which is Through Glass Darkly, Winter Light, and The Silence. Now, with this one, outside of the new 2K restoration, is they also have new special features. So if you picked up the DVD version of it a while ago, came out years ago, the new Blu-ray version of it has new interviews, new audio interviews, an illustrated audio interview with the cinematographer, a couple of things on there. So it's not just like one of those, Criterion does a lot where it's just the new Blu-ray restoration and that's it. It's exactly the same as the DVD, just better quality. They actually added some stuff to this.
Very cool. All right, I think that's going to do it for this week. Thank you so much for listening. You can send us your questions and topics to podcast@filmpulse.net. You can follow us on Twitter @FilmPulseNet and @FilmPulseKevin. If you have a minute, take a look at our Patreon page, patreon.com/filmpulse. Consider helping us out by becoming a subscriber. For Kevin Rakestraw, my name's Adam Patterson. We'll see you next week.